Real Country 1430 AM and 107.3 FM WRDN. I'm Brian Winnekins at the NAFB convention in Kansas City. And thank you to our broadcast sponsors, including the Wisconsin Beef Council. Also, Mycogen Seeds, Matt Carl's our representative in Northwest Wisconsin, Annabis Silo, and the Wisconsin Farm Bureau Federation. And joining us this morning, Veronica Nye. She is an economist with the American Farm Bureau, and we're going to talk a little bit about trade and all of the things behind that. And Veronica, thank you for joining us with all of the trade issues that we've been having, but even like for Wisconsin, we rely so heavily on trade, especially from the USMCA. How important is it to get this done?
Well, I think there's a couple of different things going on with USMCA. One is that we all know that Canada and Mexico are incredibly important markets for the U.S. Almost 30% of our exports, all ag exports, go to those two countries. And some of the wins that we're going to see as a result of USMCA, it's important to remember that they don't go into effect until this thing actually gets implemented and into law. So certainly, for the dairy sector, there's a lot of things in the USMCA that are important that will help that sector hopefully be more competitive in the Canadian market. But then the second overall thing is that, it's really a precedent-setting thing for our other trade partners. It's important for them to know that we can pass a trade agreement. And that's a big deal if you're thinking about the future and what it might look like to have other trade agreements with other partners.
Now, recently we have the Japanese trade deal, and it looks like that's going to help dairy, but it's also going to help some of our other agricultural producers as well.
Well, the thing with Japan is, we had a deal with them ready to go through the TPP, and the U.S. withdrew from that a few years ago. But what's interesting about that agreement is the other countries went on without us. So some of our biggest competitors for things like beef and pork, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and dairy, they all already have that agreement with Japan. The European Union even has a trade agreement with Japan. So for that particular agreement, we're really, and in that particular market, we're falling behind every day as other countries make inroads into that market and make those partnerships more solid with their buyers. So getting a Japan deal in place reverses that degradation of our market share, and that's really important.
Veronica, with all of the trade issues that we've had, the trade war with China and all of that, as an economist, what happens when eventually all of this is going to go away? I mean, we're going to get stuff figured out, but the lost markets, as an economist, how hard is it going to be for us to regain some of that? Because people start to find new places to go to get stuff.
Well, that's exactly the right question to be asking. And I think the longer this drags out, the more difficult it's going to be. So, you think about things like corn and soybeans, which certainly can be stored, but we're running out of storage space after a big harvest last year and then another good harvest this year. And you start thinking about all those stocks that are sitting around. How long does it take to unwind all of those stocks? The longer this goes on, the more difficult that becomes. But for even beyond those two sort of highline products that we've been talking about, you're absolutely right. Those customers that we've relied on in the past, they've been making trade deals and purchasing decisions with other people. And it's kind of like getting dumped, I think, for in a relationship. I don't want you anymore, and so I go out and I find a new partner, and then all of a sudden that person who dumped you comes back and says, "Oh yes, I really would actually like to be with you again." And what prompts them to go back to the person, to the country, to that market that they think maybe abandoned them a little bit?
Veronica, what about, with all of these trade agreements, again, even in farm media and national media, it has been really the agriculture side of this. But for the person in downtown Durand that might own a little shop, what does all this mean for them to have the agriculture exports start coming back, we start getting those back in force and start selling some of this stuff like we had been? What does it mean for that small shop owner that, well, I don't sell soybeans, so what does it mean for me?
Well, in real nerdy economics speak, we talk a lot about multipliers, and I think it's well known at this point that less than 2% of the U.S. population is employed in agriculture, but we account for about 20% of the total economy, and that's because the soybean, the guy who grows the soybeans needs to buy his equipment from somewhere. And when he's in town getting fuel or getting a new tire for his tractor, well, he stops at the grocery store and and gets a gallon of milk, and he stops at the diner and has a cup of coffee, and then he stops by the bank and deposits a check from earlier. Those are all services, and those are all businesses that are reliant on a strong farm economy. So those multipliers, the truck drivers, the grocery stores, all of those different services, that the healthcare providers that all support rural communities, they're feeling the pinch too. When those farmers who are a major generator of economic activity in their area, when times are tough for them, they're not making the same purchase and business decisions that they would otherwise. So when we can get the trade situation settled out, things can return more to normal for all businesses, not just those directly related to agriculture.
That is Veronica Nye. She's economist with American Farm Bureau Federation. We're at the NAFB convention in Kansas City. I'm Brian Winnikins on Real Country 1430 AM and 107.3 FM WRDN.